All right, guys, so we're going to do an Unleash video and watch a time lapse of the low poly being made for this and then baked out inside a Substance Painter and talk about some of the things going on there in that time lapse. Now, of course, this was the cylinder that I showed in the modeling cylinders video, and all of the techniques shown in that video were used to create this thing for the most part, except for the sculpting of the top half here. So the main thing is that, they take time to put together, and it takes several hours to actually come up with decent designs and trial and error things. But baking it also takes quite a bit of time. And believe it or not, this object is, in fact, this is a low poly, right? So it is not a high poly model by any means, and it has been baked down. And that's what we're going to just kind of watch take place here. It takes a little bit of time to even get something like this right, because it's not really made that well to be baked down, right? So that's what we're gonna do next, right? All right, so this is gonna start off pretty rough. It's gonna first get decimated, the high poly that is. And decimated can be a little bit challenging. A little trick here for this is that before you enter any values into the decimate, just turn it off if like it's not working, right? Like the little, you'll see me check it here as we go through this, but you turn it off, set the value, and then apply it, and it'll actually, when you apply it, it'll decimate it. So you don't have to do it twice, kind of where the modifier does it once, and then every time you change the value, it redoes it. You can just keep reapplying it. Can't take them down too far. This needed to reduce a little bit so that it would have a better time baking anyways, because all these pieces were like 2 million triangles or so, except for like one of them. But the main thing is it's got to be reduced so that it bakes a little bit easier anyways. And so we're going to see here as we go through this process, it does not go smooth, right? And this high poly model, it was not really made to bake out very well. Like, I knew it would have issues with some of the things I was doing on some of the pieces. Other ones would have less issues. But generally speaking, like these big sections where there's a lot of depth to things, you got to kind of match that with the low poly. Otherwise, it just doesn't work out very well. And certain things like the lens area, that could have been done as a separate like low poly model. But instead, I wanted to go with the lowest poly possible model for the most part. Almost a pure cylinder all the way through, just to show you how you can actually transfer details like this from a seemingly complex model to something much simpler and still get decent kind of results out of it. Now, there's a number of things I could have done further that I didn't do in this video as well, but it's just as a quick example, it's gonna show you quite a bit here. I think that'll help you out. So the next thing that's happening here is I use object colors just to kind of preview an idea of breaking up my materials or whatever. I got actually assigned materials now. So that's what I'm doing here and just kind of matching them. And this is so I can just create a color ID map in Substance Painter. So I can have a much quicker time putting materials onto the surfaces here in Substance anyways. Now we're starting on the low poly. Now this model, it was actually just 3 cylinders that I was just having a good time just modeling some cylinders. So, what I ended up doing was just smashing them all together. You can see the high poly got inverted. We'll flip it around the normals anyways. I'm just going to model a very basic cylinder around it. I mean, sometimes that's all you need. If it's a prop in a game and it's not like super, super important, you can usually do something like this, try to capture some of the basic silhouette. Even with these big gaps and everything happening in here, I'm just trying to get near the right sizes of it. And I'm just going to shift things around. These cylinders are not in alignment with each other, so I got to shift the low poly up and down a little bit. Got a little taper there at the end, kind of capture that little top silhouette, and that's it. I mean, I really didn't do anything else other than this. And so knowing that we're going from something a little bit more complex to something so simple, I know there's going to be errors in it. Right? It's not close enough matching to really not have errors in it. It's one of those things. But, sometimes that's all you have to, as far as the budget goes for a prop or something, and maybe you have to do it, and that's what you do. You kind of settle with some minor issues. You'll see a lot of games do that as well. That's not uncommon. It's kind of a common practice even. It would be nicer if it was, further modeled though, for the low poly at least. All right, so going into wireframe, sometimes it's hard to see things, and just pure wireframe view is actually sometimes a better option there. And So now I'm prepping it. I think I already unwrapped it, just talking away. I didn't even notice. Yeah, unwrap would be really quick. Basically, you apply sharpen by angle. You apply it. You get all your sharps. You convert them to seams, and I add one seam all the way down the back. The UV map editor, you can use text tools to straighten out some of those circular shapes, and then just pack it with Pack Master at 8, and it's pretty much done at that point. If I didn't, yeah, I already did it. So now we're going to substance. I'm just naming them appropriately, adding weighted normals, triangulating. We just shade smooth because we already have sharp edges marked. You bring it into substance. You set it up as a I just set it up as a Blender project, but I tag use fragment shader basically at the beginning there. So just load the low, fragment shade it, load the high in the baker. And I'm going to start tweaking with these values a lot at kind of a preview level. And it's not going to go well here with the bake at first. And I actually get kind of bored with trying to fix the bake, and I move on to just setting up some of the materials with the color ID. And what you'll see here is that I go back and I correct it a little bit more later on, but it still has issues. And you can kind of expect that from the mismatch between the high and the low. It's not close enough matching. And so it's going to come on with some issues for sure. You can see like it looks terrible these first few bakes, right? Playing around with the values, pushing it in and out. Could turn a lot of them off and just practice on like just normal maps or something, but kind of looking at it, checking it, still got errors everywhere. I'm just going to get frustrated and rage quit the bake screen here. So the color ID is like really useful because when you select a material or a smart material, and as you're dragging it out of the asset browser, you just hold control, your color ID map shows up, right? I know that if we're baking the color ID map and I'm pulling them out and assigning them to those colors, if I rebake the thing, it'll update all my color ID maps. So I'm not worried if it gets placed exactly correct on the model. I'm just going to drag them out and place them, get kind of the materials going, and then go back and mess with that baker a little bit more. You can see I had to expand it really far, and that's one of the things that ends up happening with these types of models. Sometimes you got to expand them way more than you want to. You can see now I'm just control dragging them out and assigning them real quick. You got to expand them a lot more than you want to, and sometimes you get like weird distortions from that and stuff. So you can see like the real in-depth areas, they just don't work out well. That's one of those things you want to avoid when creating your high polys sometimes. And you see I'm just trying to tweak some of the materials so they look more like what I originally wanted anyways. Now the color IDs, they usually come in kind of alias looking with some white specks in between them, and they're not really that great, surprisingly. And what you're going to find here is that I'm trying to tweak some of the settings for it, that color ID filter, color selection mask anyways. And it's just not quite going exactly the way I want on some of them. So you're going to see, I'm going to add a levels. I'm going to try to tweak levels, and it doesn't do nothing right now, right? So I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to add a blur filter. And then I'm going to adjust those levels. And that'll give me a little bit more push and pull on it, right? To be able to get it to go out to where I want it to go. You see? Just a little bit of extra there to push it out. That usually works out pretty well, by the way. So if it's something you want to do. Now we're going back to the baker. I'm going to try to diagnose with the color ID at first, I guess, but trying to see if I can't get something working. I think I landed on something here that was doing okay, but on the backside, it still wasn't okay. It was really like that back facing amount was just, it's an insane number there. So you gotta be careful with these kind of things. I found something that seemed decent enough. I went ahead and started baking it out. You're gonna notice at a certain part here, I'm gonna actually dislike the white on the bottom cylinder on a piece. I'm gonna actually paint that out. If I didn't already do it, I might have done it. Trying to watch this video and talk at the same time, so it's challenging. So I'm thinking about all the different things that went into this, right? But yeah, you see how all the dust is kind of built up on it and it's kind of tan. I didn't really care for that. I probably could have masked it out a little bit differently, but I ended up just throwing a paint layer on the mask. So when you're in the mask area, right, you click on the little mask icon and then you can add a paint layer. You can just start painting a mask too. And just checking like just a little bit of oddities in there because of the depth in the bake and all that. But You can see there's all these little areas that are still kind of messed up. So I just figured I'd go ahead and bake it. We're not changing UVs or nothing. So what we're going to do is just, go through, turn some symmetry on to make it a little easier. Just start doing some manual work real quick in that area. It takes no time at all. Not worried about precision on that one. Just trying to fly through it. Really, I just wanted to do this video so some of you guys can kind of see a little bit of the process of getting started up on a model at least. You can model the high, you can create your low UV map, texture, or a color idea, and then you can start setting it up inside of Painter with a better bake, trial and error things, and then start working some things out. So I added, actually what you didn't see was one of the materials had that dust, right? So I went ahead and duplicated that layer in that material and I pulled it to the top so everything gets a little bit of dust like that. And I'm just kind of tweaking it now, seeing what I can do with it. I'm still realizing that that area baked very poorly, so I'm going to go back and tweak the settings and bake it again. And just hope it comes out right, because honestly, when you're doing those big pushes like that, that's usually doesn't come out very well. And just trying to get it to a reasonable level. You can see it's not too terrible, but some parts are definitely wrong. And there's some skewing that's going to happen. So there's little steps in here that I'm not going to show, but you should, think about or consider doing, like doing skew corrections. Substance Painter doesn't work really well with that. You can bake maps in Substance Designer with skew correction, or you can use Marmoset tool bag, but Painter doesn't really have it. So you end up having to bake two sets of textures in Painter, taking them to something like Photoshop, and then combining those two together to get a skew correction going. It's really a pain process. So I'd highly recommend just using Substance Designer or Marmoset for baking if you need skew correction. It's much easier to deal with. So yeah, we're just going back into Blender now. So already I was kind of happy with the results that I had there. It wasn't fully flushed out per se, but I wanted to go into Blender. I exported an Unreal Engine template. Node Wrangler will load it up like so. The only thing that I didn't catch offhand was that I forgot that I exported the normal map as a DirectX, so all the normals are inverted right now. It's something that's very easy to do by accident. I'm going to show you a little screenshot here at the end of this time lapse on how you can convert a normal map from DirectX to OpenGL, which is what Blender wants. It's very easy to do. You're just going to add a color ramp, and you're just going to flip the green channel basically. But now I'm setting up a little scene, doing some lighting, and no in particular like formula here for the lighting, just adding some lights, seeing what might look good with this thing. The one thing I do is use a spotlight though. And I simulate the idea in like photography, when you're doing like portrait photography, you use a light from the rear to capture rim light on the subject. And usually you use what's called a snoot on your light. So that way it only hits in specific areas and doesn't bleed light everywhere. So a directional light or a spotlight does the same thing basically. So you use a spotlight instead if you need to. Now I'm going to turn on some post-processing. So the 3D viewport, in the viewport settings, you can change it to use a compositor. The compositor, you can add lens flare, glow, or whatever, sharpening. So I'm going to do a number of those things in here. I'm going to set up a little bit of box sharpening, and then I'm going to do some distortion. I'm going to add some noise as well, which you'll see take place in a little bit. I'm setting up a camera as well, setting up depth of field using an empty over the eye there, or the lens if you would. And I'm going to focus on that and then set depth of field so that it has a little blurring towards the backside. Very minor amount. And we're going to see that now I create the noise texture. I'm going to add it to a mix and flip it back to the regular mode there so I can change the scale of it and whatnot. I'm going to add a brightness and contrast node so that I can just increase it as much as I want. If you ever want to animate that, you set it to 40. So you can have a little bit of noise taking place. And I set the blend to multiply, and that's pretty much that there. So all in all, end up packing the file because I'm probably going to delete everything else. Save a little bit of space and just leave it with the blend file. Sometimes I do that. I'll keep like a substance file, but I won't keep all the PBR textures necessarily. I might re-export them if I need them or something, but otherwise I keep them in the blend file. Oh, and here's the node setup, right? I just kind of went past it. Just switch to green channels. Press G, invert the ramp. That's all. when you do that, and then that'll work. These are some just work in progress photos. I mean, doing each section piece by piece, tossing it together real quick, kind of the initial toss together. And then that's it, right? So it all kind of comes together very fast. And the final render, right? So I really just wanted to show this all to you guys. I hope you enjoyed, and check you out in the next one, all right? Take care.